Look, man, I just really wanted to recap this whole Sikh helmet thing. If you were here Friday, you probably saw that we went through all the tweets, TikToks, and everything about it, and then realized I forgot to hit record. It happens, but we're professionals, so we're just gonna do it and move on and keep pretending like nothing bad happened. Anyways, this whole controversy just seems like a bit overdone and like half baked, so it's kind of weird. And I know a lot of people I talked to were just like, I don't get it, I don't get it. And look, while I think that the Sikh helmet is awesome, I'll probably be getting one for my kids. I personally rock a helmet when I go snowboarding. I understand the other side of this, and I want to try and hit both points so that everyone kind of gets a fair shakedown in this whole thing. So let's get us started. So yeah, this whole thing starts with Miss Tina Singh. She's a Sikh mom, has two Sikh children. Maybe she has more, but she has Sikh children, and she realized that she was having a problem keeping them safe without a helmet, because none of the helmets properly fit. And if you are pairing of Sikh kids, you know that putting the helmet on, it just doesn't fit. So you can either get a bigger helmet, in which case the helmet's not going to fit right, it's going to be loose at the top or whatever, or you can hollow out the helmet and all of a sudden it's just a plastic shell and probably offers very little protection. Or you could do what I sometimes do, or what I did growing up, which was just not wear a helmet. And for some people it's kind of like, well, why do kids even need helmets? It's not that big of a deal. We all grew up without helmets. And it's true, man, we literally did grow up without helmets, and for the longest time I didn't even touch a helmet. I was like, nah, I can't put a helmet on my Dastad against Sikhi. And I was like, moving on. And then I started snowboarding. Went snowboarding without helmet, got a few bumps, head hurt for a while, probably got concussed. But after that I was like, you know what, I ain't that strong no more. So now when I'm bored, I wear a helmet. And when I take my kids biking, even if we're going to go down hills or do anything like fun, I'm just like, just put a helmet on. If they're just going up a path and stuff, I'm like, yeah, whatever. But suffice to say, helmets help. They do help, and having a helmet that fits properly matters. And if your kid's rocking a helmet and they have a judo and you have to undo the judo when you're going out, and then you got to redo it when they get to the park, it just became a whole thing. So I'm really happy she made this. It's definitely going to make lives easier in that regard. And everyone's just like, well, they should just learn how to tie the star on stuff, and I think that's a whole different thing. But for kids who wear parque, this seems like a great solution. Let's just check what she says. This clip's on TikTok. It's from CBC.
This one is for you. My kids keep their hair, and so anytime I went to go put a bike helmet on them when they were going out to ride or learning to ride for the first time, nothing would fit them properly. Some of the things we did.
So yeah, they got like a little judo bump for it. I don't think this helps me in any way when it comes to boarding or doing anything else that I do with a helmet, because a lot of times a small kioski works just as fine. But I think for kids with parque, you know how friggin' big their judo can get in that. Pretty good solution, low key.
With what we had are, sizing up our helmets, which led them to not fit properly, or trying to hollow out the foam on the inside. But basically what makes this unique is that it has this dome portion on the top to accommodate your child's hair. So if you look inside, you can see that the helmet itself is curved in order to have it fit in a way where they're still matching all the rules for how a helmet should fit. I hope this makes them feel included. I think
that's dope. And I think it's different depending on how good of a rider you are and how old your kids are, because like my kids are pretty young, so for them putting a helmet on, they're gonna fall. They're just learning how to ride a bike, and they're doing dumb shit like going down hills with me. So for like, even I'm like, yeah, they should be wearing like elbow pads, knee pads and stuff when we go bike riding. But makes a difference, man. You don't want to risk your kid getting headaches and head injuries this young, and I think this is aimed at younger kids. I don't know any older kids who would be able to rock this or who'd want to rock a helmet, but for younger kids, man, I think this is a godsend.
Creating a product for Sikh kids is the demonstration of inclusion and diversity and how we develop products and how we look at the people who need to be served. And,
So obviously, great idea, dope concept, but not everyone agrees. Obviously, there's a lot of pushback. If you've been watching Twitter, there's this whole thing where people weren't too pleased with it. One of the people who was really vocal at the start and then they really softened their tone at the end was an organ that I'm too familiar with. It actually had me blocked on Twitter because I've had some harsh criticisms for them in the past, and that doesn't change here either. It was the one and only, the United Sikhs, who, not always united sometimes, but United Sikhs says United Sikhs recognizes that the Sikh youth and adults in defense services or in any physical activity such as cycling need a mechanism to protect themselves from head injury or trauma. We respect the sentiments of the Sikh mother in devising our means to protect her children. The particular solution proposed does not adhere to Sikh tenets, history, and begets an improvised solution with safety as a paramount consideration, inclusive of community feedback. We are hoping to reach out to the family and assist in a solution that addresses both safety and acceptable community concerns. Okay. I do have like a few interesting issues. The particular solution proposed does not adhere to Sikh tenets, history, and begets an improvised solution with safety. I mean, so they're saying, hey, look, this isn't the Sikh way, but we understand that, you know, safety and protection are paramount. Let's look for an alternative. I mean, what is that alternative here for these kids? I don't understand what is safer than a helmet right now. Like, what's the alternative here that they're proposing or they're suggesting that we look as a community to find, or we seek consultations from the community and take another 10 years to come up with something that we'll take full credit for? And, you know, thank you, Mom, but I don't know. Their first take was actually a lot harder. And then the second take, I don't know if it was any better. The comments were kind of, who made you a voice for all Sikhs? A mother of three who has an idea, her willingness and guts to see an idea through, it's applauded. But instead, she's dragged for it. What will you accomplish by speaking to her? There's more siding with her than trying to make it your own moment. Who else went against them? If you go through the comments here, everyone's just like L take. Rowan from there, appalled at your threaded tweets. Rather than supporting a woman entrepreneur who is trying to teach her children how to survive in this world while still adhering to her faith, you're shooting her down for not consulting with you or others. So yeah, I mean, what are you supposed to do? Hey, I have this idea. It works, it's great, I'm gonna get it working. Oh no, I gotta go talk to, like, what's community consulting here? When, if you're a member of the faith and you feel like you're doing something, you keep growing, you keep raising your kids in that faith, what type of consulting like are people looking for here? Should you be approaching a specific groups, a multitude of groups? Like, what's the litmus here? Which that definitely I agree with. There seems to be like a weird, you know, the whole consulting thing. And there are products that launch and at 6 we cringe at, like, oh man, that's weird. And honestly, there are people who cringe at this, and I understand where they come from, and we'll get into their views. Ooh, OKD Dixie Guru Kar. Is this our official quote? Turban is a symbol of a religious identity and is placed on our heads by our great Guru Sahibaan. I mean, look, I'm not going to get too deep into that, but let's keep going. Shamsher Singh wasn't a fan of this take either. Neither was Harjinder Singh. So let's look at Harjinder Singh's tweet, one of the original ones here. Wear the star. Tie the star on your kids. You can tie a lot of piece of the star under your chin. Tie it crown of your head, secure the star for combat or anything else. Sikhs in the West campaign for the last 60 years to wear the stars, not helmets. Let's not get it twisted. And then Shamsher added on to that, the health and safety justification is really weird, coming from a certain type of parental anxiety and of course the military police types. It's like Sikhs haven't been riding horses, bikes, and motorcycles in Punjab forever. And he says, and I don't think the few examples of Sikh helmets from the 18th century were items in widespread use and pretty clearly for the wealthy, given the surviving examples. So I think they both got some points here that are worth really going into. Sikhs have in the West been lobbying helmet exemptions for the Stara for the last 60 years. Holy smokes, I feel old when I say it like that. Even like in the military specifically, to serve in the military without wearing helmets, to ride motorcycles without helmets, to go go-karting with helmets, to do a lot of things without helmets. We've worked hard, we've fought in court, we've won cases that now offer these exemptions, and for the most part it's dope. I think and this is where it's kind of split, because I 100% think as a Sikh, if you wear the star and you don't want to wear a helmet, you shouldn't need to. You shouldn't have to if you don't want to. That's kind of where I leave it at that. Like, you're the star, and for some people, not a lot of people, not all people, but for some people, putting anything on top of the star is just not right. It takes away from the star being the crown. I'm not one of them specifically here, so this is kind of where it's kind of like, okay, I understand your point, I'm for your point, I agree with your point, but I still think, wearing a helmet's safe. And you're right, Sikhs have been, like, we're friggin' things in Anand Prasad do acrobatics on horses running without helmets. Do the Dastana offer them specific head protection? I don't think they do, but the fact that they still do it is pretty badass. When Sikhs ride motorcycles, I had a buddy wearing the Stad, got into a motorcycle accident. The Stad, disintegrated on the road. Didn't really protect his head. Had to go and get a plate put in. Maharaj Kirpa fully recovered. But this notion that we are always protected, I mean, I feel like we say that sometimes, but there's just not hard science and hard data that backs it up. And that's another thread that someone was really getting at, is there isn't hard data in this case, you know, to really make a full-on point. So maybe we should do the science and get the data to really back these points up. But there's also this thing where he said a parental anxiety. So this is kind of a weird take because, look, as a parent, the thing you want for your kids is to be safe. You want them to be protected. And I don't think it's an abnormal anxiety that your kids go in and you know that they're not protected. If, you know, they go driving without a seatbelt, you're just like, no, put your seatbelt on, it'll keep you safe. And we've seen people who get in accidents without seatbelts go flying out of their cars. You know, we know concussion, we have a ton of data now on concussions, so not all parents want their kids going into, you know, American football or playing hockey without a helmet because they're like, yeah, no, buddy, that's going to hurt. That could affect their future. Why even risk it? I don't think this whole notion of trying to frame it as parental anxiety is fair. I think it's just, if you're a parent who's not concerned about your child's safety, I feel like you're missing out a little bit. That seems a bit unfair. I think this is kind of valid that there are the few examples of the Sikh helmets that we see from historic things. They're rare. They seem like they were for the rich. I don't know the full history behind them. I haven't really read too much on it, but they did exist, which kind of surprised me. I didn't even know they existed before too long ago. And you would think that if they were in way more widespread use, they'd be more ingrained in us and this wouldn't be near as contentious of an issue. And this also comes up like recently. India has been saying that Sikh soldiers should be wearing helmets when they're in the front lines, and for the longest time there were exemptions for them from having to wear it. And Sikhs even fought the British government when they tried to implement such a thing in World War. I thought that it was more recent in America and Canada also, but apparently India's trying this now, and the Tock the Jetta thought it was just like, we cannot stand for this as a qawm. And it just happened to be coming up, you know, all at the same time as this. And I think one of the people commenting in here, this guy's a friggin' laloo. This guy should just be erased from the internet but need sanity. What a hero, friggin'. He's a horrible human being in my opinion based on his things. He's a weirdo just floating around on the internet. I don't even consider him. Sikh scientists, these are one of the people who were talking about, you know, collecting data, making more, maybe finding a different approach. They were talking about like a Kevlar Dastad, which I really don't know how that worked. The rest of the world is making bulletproof vests, jackets, even shirts, but Sikhs are sleeping. They cannot make bulletproof turbans, so let them sleep. They don't need protection. Yeah, so I think he just wants to, or he's kind of on the side that we need more data pulling this stuff. I thought I saw one. I don't like this picture. This picture seems very racist. It just so happens that it all coincides with this thing that's happening in India, so it makes for like a great hit piece of Sikh soldiers should not have to wear helmets. Meanwhile, in Canada, we're making helmets for kids. I don't know if those are apples to apple comparisons. And like I said, I support Sikhs from not having to wear helmets, or it should be a choice for the individual to not wear a helmet on top of their side if they just don't want to. And obviously then you also get the memes. The memes were hilarious. And I thought this one, well mean-spirited, was also pretty funny because Ajit Singh says, a mom designed bike helmets for her kids so they can be safe. I misread that. Let me start again. All right. Anyways, a mom designed bike helmets so her kids can be safe while keeping case. And now you get a debate on Sikh Twitter. Morbidly obese men who are afraid to chatka chickens, talking about Shastar Vidya, sitting at home gorging in eggless cakes, policing what it means to be a Tihar Tihar. I thought it was funny. I know it's mean because obviously I feel targeted. I sit at home gorging eggless cupcakes and not, you know, doing chatka and eating meat and all that. So there is this like weird take of, where I kind of took it was people who aren't athletic, who do not participate in sports, do anything, who kind of just sit on the couch and on the sidelines, are all of a sudden criticizing a mom who wants her kids to be more active, more involved, you know, by wearing a helmet. There is some truth to that, man. Like, so, I mean, going after vegetarians here, I don't think is totally cool at all, but at the same time, I thought this tweet was funny because I found it a little bit relatable. Sometimes it's like, well, if you can't wear a helmet, don't do that activity. Or if you have to wear a helmet, don't do that activity. And for the longest time growing up, I was like that. I was like, well, I'm not going to go skiing or snowboarding if I got to put a helmet. I used to go skiing without a helmet. I used to take those bumps and bruises, like I said, until now I'm just like, no, man, I can't stand another concussion. And when I go skating, if I go skating tomorrow, I'm not going to wear a helmet. But if I were to go play hockey, that would be a whole different thing. Obviously, I never got into playing some of these sports because of the helmet stuff. But I think that's a real handicap on our future. And I think we just got to move beyond it a little bit, low-key. This was another funny meme. Mahakal said, what if the helmet was Sarablo? And obviously, he's kind of just mimicking what people want. It's, again, is it mean-spirited? Maybe. I just found it funny, man. Just leave it at that. I found the joke funny. I ain't gonna jump into the, well, why is he talking bad about something? I mean, look, man, I wear sub low, cut out iron fucking bangle. That's the name. I'm all for sub low, but I don't think this is. Hear me out. There might be some truth to that. If this wasn't a plastic helmet and it was like a sub low helmet, come on, we'd all kind of be a little bit more lenient. Like, don't you think there'd be a little bit more leniency towards it? I think there's some truth to that. Maybe that's why I find it funny. Anyways, here's the Sikh scientists, guys. These guys had a weird take, but they were just like, yo, instead of paying $30 for a company that will eventually go bankrupt, is what I kind of insinuated what they were saying with these numbers. They're kind of saying, look, if they sell 100,000 in 2 years, they're going to make 3 mil. So how about you just invest 1.5 with us? We'll get you the data and you can make a reasonable debate then, because at least you'll have data to back it up. I don't know, man. And if we fail, we will refund the investor completely. That part didn't make sense. You're going to do a study, so you're collecting data with that. So you have a hypothesis, you're going to collect data. You don't know what the results are going to be. So what part are you saying we failed that we're going to return? We failed to get the data we want? I don't know. That, like, how do you refund investor money on a science project? And here's another TikTok that was pretty passionate about not wearing the Sikh helmet.
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਇੱਕ ਗੰਭੀਰ ਮੁੱਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਅੱਜ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਨਾ ਇੱਕ ਹੈਲਮਟ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੈਲਮਟ ਜੋ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਉਹਦੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਹੈਲਮਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਸੀ ਬਣਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਉਹਨੇ ਹੈਲਮਟ ਬਣਾ ਲਿਆ ਜੀ ਸਦਕੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਹੈਲਮਟ ਬਣਾਓ ਪਰ ਜੂੜੇ ਵਾਲਾ ਹੈਲਮਟ ਨਾ ਬਣਾਓ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਲੜਾਈ ਲੜੀ ਆ
So where he's really coming from is like, you know, don't make a specific helmet for Patke or Jude. Instead, just wear a big dastar that'll protect you. That's what Guru Sahib wants from us. And again, he goes on, he quotes
ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਹੈਲਮਟ ਨਾ ਪਾਈਏ ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਬੰਨ ਕੇ ਰੱਖੀਏ ਜੇ ਭਾਈ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਮੁੰਡੇ ਦੇ ਹੈਲਮਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਬੰਨਣੀ ਸਿਖਾਓ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਬੰਨਣਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜੋ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਕਰੋ ਪਰ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੈਲਮਟ ਦਾ ਨਾਂ ਨਾ ਦਿਓ ਮੇਰੀ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਆ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੇਰੇ
yeah, so you just like wear the dastar if the patkas, you know, if they're getting injured wearing a patka, put a full on dastar. But honestly, man, like, look, I wore a full on like this dastar, maybe even a little bigger than this when I went skiing and snowboarding. When you fall, this is coming apart. And they're like, well, you didn't hide the mala. I went, man, I swear to God, I went with friggin' Hung Sings who were like, or, you know, when their dastar came apart, when they fell, they were like, I'm like, not really helping you here, is it? And they're like, yo, it's just not tied right. I'm like, and legit, this thought go skiing with this, fall once, it's coming off. You go any fall on a bike, coming off. Mountain biking, fall, this is coming off, man. This isn't gonna survive like these dastar don't survive impact. Even the dastar I wear, enough impact pops right off. That's why when I was even doing jiu-jitsu, I had to change it up.
ਚੈਨਲ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੇ ਨੇ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਵੱਧ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰੋ ਇਹਦਾ ਵਿਰੋਧ ਕਰੀਏ ਉਹਦਾ ਨਾਂ ਚੇਂਜ ਕਰਾਓ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਿਦਵਾਨ ਬਣਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ
So see, this is where it kind of comes. This is the point that I think a lot of people are making is don't say it's a Sikh helmet. And I was talking to a few people, including members of the WSO, who are like, look, the real issue here right now is for years we've been fighting the STATA cases for the STATA accommodation. And what we risk or what we're afraid of is when we go into these meetings for accommodation, people are like, well, you guys found one for the kids. Why can't you guys come up with one for yourselves? And it's like, look, one, it's for kids. It's a Sikh helmet. But they're like, well, it's for Sikhs. How can you say it's not again, you know? And then it's kind of like you enter this weird thing. And a lot of these debates, like the Sikh helmet one and stuff, it's not solved by the bureaucrats. It's solved by legislators. So now you're in the House of Commons or whatever, people debating it. And now what happens is critics can be like, well, you have a Sikh helmet. Look, it literally says Sikh helmet. Why can't they use that? Clearly help. And it opens up this whole Pandora that, like, look, not all people are comfortable wearing helmets or putting anything on top of their dastar. And I think that's fair. I don't criticize them nor hold that against them or hold them to it. I think, and that's why I've said, this is specifically designed for, one, people who are okay with their kids wearing helmets. And two, if you're not okay with your kid wearing a helmet, you don't want them to wear a helmet, don't buy it, don't use it. No one's saying this should become law. We're just saying here's a helmet for parents who want their kids to wear helmets. And I think that's kind of it there. But calling it a Sikh helmet, I understand, could lead to confusion with Gode and, you know, make legislation, some of these things a little more harder. But I don't see anyone saying, oh, well, now that you guys discovered a Sikh helmet, we're undoing all the laws that we've passed and undoing all of it for you guys. It's all done. You guys figured it out. It's all solved. You know, I don't think that anxiety should be real. I don't think it is real. But I understand that the terminology of calling it a Sikh helmet could bring about certain issues. I don't know if the comments were pro or against, but it got shared. It got 3,622 likes. How many views did this get? probably got a ton of views. Oh, we can't see comments. Never mind. I understand about wearing the star, but for me, protection comes first for a child. For me, Sikhi comes first. For once, why can't our community just be happy that there's something good? And why are you hating her son got a bad head injury? That's why she made this. Let's protest Nanak Baniyat too. It's for kid safety. No, I wish my brother had something like this growing up. It is so important for safety. Yeah, so TikTok was not, I don't have an issue with the helmets. The safety concern. Yeah, so even he's getting cooked in the comments, it seems, right? I think everyone's kind of like, look, man, if this gets kids a little bit more active, gets them outside, what's the big deal? Like I said, I understand there's Sikhs who are uncomfortable with it. They're like, hey, we've been riding motorcycles and doing all that without helmets. We're safe. I'd argue they're, it's a risk they're willing to take. And if that's a risk you're willing to take, so be it. I have no problem with it. This is Jod Singh, Young Puchang on Twitter. If you don't follow him, I think he's a great follow. Always has some informative takes, learn a lot about Sikh history from his stuff. I think he's pretty fun to follow. So, follow him, Anyways, he says some confusion over the fact that this battle attire for a Sikh warrior shows him in a helmet. Sikhs wearing helmets into battle became particularly popular in Ranjit Singh's era, and these helmets would sometimes be interlaced in the shape of worn on top of cloth turbans. So sometimes this was on top of a cloth turban. Sometimes the cloth turban was tied on top of these. It seems. This is a really good website that is comprehensive, covers the history of the Sikh helmet using pictorial evidence. However, it seems to be missing the one piece of key evidence for its conclusion that the helmet originated with the Sikh Empire, which is that according to the Pant Prakash, helmets were a distinctive feature of the well-funded Mughal and Pathan armies alike in the Misl area, but that Khalsa Singhs also did wear them occasionally. So obviously you adopt some of the armor of your enemies, I guess. In one chapter describing a one-on-one duel with a young Sukha Singh who cut the head off Masarangar and a much larger Pathan warrior, it mentions that he adorned his steel armor and includes that he wore a steel helmet. Remarked Sukha Singh, blessed are you, my dear boy, now see how I deal with that audacious Pathan. With these words, Sukha Singh sent for his steel armor and covered his head and hands with a steel helmet and gloves. So, obviously it's a translation. In another chapter of the Valiant War, Gadam Singh is also noted as having adorned himself with a helmet, but after his head is hit with a sword, both his helmet, mukut, and his turban, bug, fall off, suggesting he wore a helmet on top of his turban. And then Sikhs in the Misl area throughout the Sikh Empire took pride in their bug as a part of their warrior dress. So perhaps that one line regarding Gadam Singh and these frescoes may shine some light that there was a spectrum between armored turban and helmet turban. And a Kali Nahang's turban adorned with all sorts of weapons and iron trappings could certainly be referred to as a helmet, especially in a poetic context. And a custom helmet worn on top of a looser, I felt like I was about to read that, loser, of a looser flat turban would provide extra protection for certain cases, say a one-on-one. So maybe, so it seems like there's a verdict that hasn't been reached on Sikhs wearing steel helmets like these, but there seems to be some historic reference there. So it kind of comes down to, well, the Sikhs from Maharaja Ranjit Singh's times weren't bothered to wear helmets. Why all of a sudden are we uptight about this stuff? And then Boz's article on this was probably by far one of the best. Balbir Singh from the WSO, and he's someone who I know who's worked tirelessly on this thought accommodation, and he's currently working on another one for Sikh truck drivers and Sikhs at construction sites when they're doing pickups and drop-offs currently. So his take's always interesting. He says it's an innovative solution for this family that Tina Singh has come up with, said Balbir Singh, legal counsel for the World Sikh Organization of Canada, an advocacy group which has fought precedents setting helmet exemption accommodation matters for Sikhs. However, I have mixed feelings about it, and I know it will be a mixed reaction in the community, which he's saying, basically he's saying, yeah, I can see why there's beef. Tina Singh has felt that mainstream media got some specifics very wrong. The Sikh helmet is not supposed to be worn on top of a turban. Rather, according to her, it is meant to be on top of a patka cloth. So she's saying, look, this is made for children. It's made for patka wearing children. It's not made for adults. Don't try to pretend like I'm trying to solve the adult helmet problem here. I'm just trying to solve it for kids. The helmet has been billed by some media outlets as the only option for Sikh children when playing sports. And so Dr. Harjit Singh Grewal, he kind of makes a note that there's a little bit of misrepresentation happening in the media. Simplification first and foremost, there's a lack of nuance in vocabulary. Children who wear this helmet will wear a patka. That's not a dastar or not a turban. So they're just like, I think it's trying to drive the point home that, this is a Sikh helmet for kids that you're wearing on top of a patka, not a dastar. Obviously, critics suggest that branding the helmet as a Sikh helmet adds to the confusion. And for those advocating for Sikh-based legal and policy accommodations concerning articles of faith, it is important to draw a distinction between a helmet for kids with a juda and Sikhs keeping the thought and not wearing a helmet for religious reasons. And Balbir goes into the hard hat issue where he's like, this isn't a solution for the hard hat issue, referring to the it shouldn't be interpreted as a breakthrough into Sikhs not having to wear this thought. This is not a product that should replace this thought. And I don't think anyone ever thought, even if it was like a helmet that can go on top of this thought, I don't think anyone was trying to argue that we're trying to replace this thought. If anything, it was kind of like auxiliary to how can I keep my this thought on while staying safe more than anything else. Kind of murky waters here. If there is a sport that has a high chance of head injury, then I can understand that an exception may not be provided where there is a remote chance of some sort of head injury. In that case, I think an exemption can and should be provided. So like hockey, I guess, where a high chance of head injury is common, or football, you know, maybe wearing helmets there are good ideas, but where there's a remote chance of some sort of head injury, in that case, yeah. So if you're just going, you know, skating casually around the rink, what difference does it make? And then Tina says she's treated, so she's worked with head injuries and stuff. I'm actually curious what Kushwan Singh, the secretary of the Sikh Motorcycle Club, one of the organizations involved with securing the helmet exemption in Ontario for Sikhs wishing to ride a motorcycle. He believes products and branding like the Sikh helmet negatively impact the struggle of Sikh community to secure important religious freedom, rights, and accommodations to wear this thought. On this issue, there is nothing that exists that is called Sikh helmets. It's totally misleading and it's not acceptable in the Sikh religion as well. This is because out of 5 of our Sikh articles of faith, the Patka protects 2 articles of faith, which are uncut hair and wooden comb. When it comes down to Sikhs not wearing a helmet, yeah, so he's just like, I feel like a lot of people are thinking that people are just gonna wear this and not wear the Patka or not wear that, whereas more it's kind of like, no, wear those. This makes it so that we can wear those. And Dr. Gurdwal later says, it's great that the option is there, but the option doesn't provide answers to every version of the religiosity of Sikhs. Most the Gurmat Siddhant and the Maryada would say that the turban needs to be outside. So they're kind of saying the thought needs to be on top. It's one of those things. And I understand, I'm not judging people who don't want to wear helmets. I'm not telling them they should. I'm just saying for those of people who do, coming up with innovative solutions so they can wear a helmet on top of this thought doesn't seem like a bad thing, especially for youth. At the very least for the kids who want to play sports, man. Because at the end of the day, right now what they're doing is they're finding ways to wear helmets that don't accommodate this thought on Patka, and they're finding other ways around it. This kind of just makes it so that they can continue to play sports while not having to undo their Patka each time. And the final and probably the most obvious take comes from the one and only Brampton Brand, who says our biggest battles are kids movies and bicycle helmets, which honestly, based on all the stuff that we get really uptight about and gets people really outraged, is these 2 things. We're against kids movies that portray Sikh history, Sahibzade Guru Sahibaan and Sikh Ityas, and now we're against bicycle helmets. What you gonna do, man? So yeah, my stance is I think it's a dope step. Sikh Helmets has actually since come out. What did they recently say? They said, in regards to the recent discussions regarding the Sikh Helmets, please see our response below. We understand that there has been concern from members of see, that's cool. They are part of the Sikh community, and the fact that we keep trying to other them in some of these comments is weird. Our Sikh community in regards to the name of our business. We acknowledge the concerns and have been reading through the various articles and comments we have been tagged in online. It was not our intention to imply endorsement by the entire community by choosing this name. Our team is currently working towards a resolution and evaluating other options, which may include a name change. We continue to stand behind our belief that Sikh kids who wear a Patka deserve the option for protection and the design of our helmet. We aim to share a further update early next week. So really they're just saying, look, if it's the name that really bugs you and that you really think is going to cause mass confusion, and I don't think it's going to cause mass confusion. I think it just gives ammo to people who didn't like Sikhs to begin with, something that they'll try to bring up during legislation of this stuff. But honestly, what are you going to call it? Like the plastic protector, the judo cover, someone was saying just call it the Sikh kids helmet, but like kids in bold in between it. I don't think that resolves anyone's things. The South, you get rid of Sikh altogether, just go like the South Asian, the South Asian man bun protector. Like there's no better, like then you just got to come up with like something complete, go like straight Web 2.0 or Web 3.0, come up with like bizarre names, call it like the Scoogie or something. I don't know. Just make up some random word and be like, that's what this is. And all of a sudden, it doesn't matter what it does in the name. You're just saying, well, you didn't like the name. And maybe that's all that it takes. Like Shakespeare says, would a rose by not any other name smell just as sweet? I hope I got that quote right. Haven't read Shakespeare in 25 years. Maybe the name's just coming up with like a completely unrelated name and saying whatever the name is, the helmet still exists. My take on it, it's just, if you wear a helmet, good on you. that's your prerogative. You don't wear a helmet, that's dope too. But yeah, I don't think that there's no reason we shouldn't have something that makes the lives of Sikh youth easier when they want to play sports, when they want to get active. Why is getting active such a bad thing in our friggin' society or in our community? Get active, get out there, have fun, and yeah, share your thoughts, man. I'm curious where you guys landed on this. Below, comment below if you, for whatever reason you agree, you disagree. I'm interested what you guys think. And honestly, let's get some names going. What would you name this? What's alternative naming that you'd come up with? But till then, peace.